The great fact humanity has to remember in the process of evolution and progress is that the trend of civilization itself is forever upward. The purpose of my talk today was to give all of you the perspective of progress, the history of emancipation of the civilization upward forever, why, and where is the role of human, that too a sensitive human being who think of the society and his country. We give the If you take into consideration the perspective of history of the emancipation of civilization, keeping their ideals and moral principles intact, regardless of what conditions or what kind of world they might one day be called upon to face. Progress is the law of nature. We have to remember it moves in long waves but does not necessarily follow a straight line through the centuries. Sometimes there are setbacks and reverses, dark periods of trial and confusion. Sometimes there are supreme tests of courage, endurance, and resolve, but in the end, the world always rights itself and mankind moves ahead again. That is the nature of the mankind, that is the nature of the civilization that we have to remember and keep it always in the mind while when we are facing the problems or challenges thrown on the mankind by the civilization. Things in life will not always run smoothly. Sometimes we will be rising toward the heights, then all will seem to reverse itself and start downward. The great fact to remember is that the trend of civilization is forever upward, that a line drawn through the middle of the peaks and the valleys of the centuries always has an upward trend. There was one great person who brooded over this subject but with all particular interest and who has given very enduring words which are influenced, which have given influence to several people. The millions of people in an anguished, war-weary world had these words of Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945, January 21st, in his fourth inaugural address. Roosevelt never forgot the man who helped shape his early years and whose faith in the progress of mankind is so impressed him in the evolution, understanding the evolution of the mankind, especially in his youth. Franklin D. Roosevelt has remained an unfailing influence throughout life. In a letter to his old school teacher friend written in 1941, President Roosevelt said, "I count it among the blessings of my life that it was given me in formative years to have the privilege of your guiding hand and the benefit of your inspiring example." This is where the role of a teacher, this is where the role of a citizen, senior citizen, who has to guide the people. See, today, probably, after many talks from various corners, from chapels and big people, great talks, parliaments, universities, and several institutions, which may try to inspire you across the span of years, the words still have the power to comfort and inspire. And in these anxious times, at any time, many have lost faith in the future and in the very survival of civilization. But the message of the history is perhaps more significant than ever. Among all the voices of defeatism and despair, it is good to hear some of our old school teachers' sayings and beautiful words about the civilization. to hold firmly to our courage and faith, and to remember that in our time, as in all times, though things may not run smoothly, though there may be periods of bitter struggle and trial, the trend of civilization is upward, forever upward. An unknown author said, "We are reading the first verse of the first chapter of a book whose pages are infinite." Whose pages are infinite. Even Plato has pointed out, if there exists a good and wise God, then there also exists a progress of mankind towards perfection. This time, like all other times, it is a very good one if we but know what to do with it. Life is a fragment of a moment between two eternities. This is a beautiful sentence, I repeat. Life is a fragment of a moment between two eternities, influenced by all that has preceded and to influence all the follows. The only way to illumine it is by extent of view. Life travels upwards in spirals. He who takes pains to search the shadows of the past below us then can better judge the tiny arc up which he climbs, more surely guess the dim curves of the future above him. Generations succeeding to the pain of their predecessors, I repeat, a beautiful word, generations succeeding to the pain of their predecessors gradually elevate the status of mankind as coral polyps, building one generation upon the work of the other, gradually elevate themselves from the bottom of the sea. These are the words of Henry George. Such a beautiful description what will happen. To say that always it will be upward, civilization is upward, forever upward. We know life are parts of humanity, even though we live different parts of humanity, that extends into the remote past, a humanity that has interacted with nature. The things in civilization we most praise are not ourselves. They exist by grace of the doings and sufferings of the continuous human community in which we are a link. I repeat this beautiful sentence. They exist by grace of the doings and sufferings of the continuous human community in which we are a link. Hence, it is our responsibility, the responsibility of our contemporary society is to follow like our earlier human race who has done such much work. We have to do for the future, for the posterity. Ours is the responsibility in conserving, transmitting, rectifying and expanding the heritage of the systems we have received, that those who came after us may receive it more solid and more secure, more widely accessible and more generously shared than we have received it. These are the words of John Dewey, a beautiful words, beautiful sentence he said. We have received that those who come after us may receive it more solid and more secure, more widely accessible and more generously shared than we have received it. See, the meaning of this, the content and the crux of it is, every generation in the process of upward civilization has to contribute, has to rectify, has to transmit and transform according to the contemporary changes and give a solid base, a solid civilizational mode to the future generation. That's what it felt. We are not the first generation to be discouraged by the contemporary scene. Victor Hugo reminds us that we now think that the 16th century was one of history's main turning points, with the Protestant Reformation and all the rest, but that who lived then called it the excrement of the ages. That we see in the 17th century thrilling discovery and adventure opening up the whole new world, but that had the foundation of the previous century. The 18th century represents a stirring scene of political liberation with the French and American revolutions and the like, but the Rousseau, in a disheartened hour, described it as the great rottenness amidst which we live. He must have felt it is rottenness, but still it has given new vistas, new thinking, new civilizational mode, and which has helped to move the upward the society. So the centuries they will be doing like that. Many of the cynics and skeptics, while those who saw the possibilities and with a faith moved mountains believed in them, were realistically right. Surely, in this regard, history can repeat itself in our century if we only stand by the best practices, best thinking, best mode, better understanding, better affirmation, and specifically a better desire that we must succeed, a good standard, a good society, an equilibrium with an equilibrium and equanimity that we must succeed to our future generations. We are marching along the endless pathway of unrealized possibilities of human growth. The human growth, if you observe, the changes in this present society, present civilization, observe, it is moving very fast. This is, of course, not the first time in the history of civilization that sensitive spirits, bred in a familiar culture, have declared because that culture was changing, that all civilization was coming to an end. This is not the first time in the history of the West that the good, the reasonable saw nothing to do but to die or to shudder. It is sobering to our too hysterical fears to take under the guidance of competent historians historical perspective. It requires a hard, even cruel effort at detachment with the past. A hope that definitely it will move upward and we can contribute in this process of moving the civilization upward. Men earlier ages too thought they were living at the end of the world. Nothing comes out of nothing. Once long ago, informed by several great philosophers, the world seemed to a good many Athenians to have ended with the Peloponnesian War. Historical mindedness may rescue us then from the sense that we are living in the twilight of the God. The crisis of civilization through which we are living is a moment only in the history of the cosmos. I repeat, such a beautiful, optimistic words. The crisis of civilization through which we are living now is only a moment in the history of the cosmos, an episode only in the history of man. History moves in long waves. We are caught in the roughest surf today and hurled about by it, but in the midst of ocean it will be calm tomorrow. In its depths it is calm today. The darkness now seems absolute. Men before us have forgotten that it hides the morning star. So the optimistic approach, that always a belief in the slogan that civilization always moves upward and upward, eternally upward. This is why I am giving in the form of a talk to many of you to listen is, everybody is thinking that the generation is in crisis, civilization is in crisis, world is at crisis, how these bad things are going and all this. See, every society, every generation, every phase of the civilization, people, humans felt it like that, but the human development, the human intelligence, the human mind for seeking the best of the future will lead the history, will lead the civilizational process and definitely create no need of any pessimistic view. I request every one of the youth to develop optimistic way, but at the same time hard work to understand what is the phase of the civilization, what is the role of us, what way we should construct, and with all above things, the great desire that we must succeed, we must give a better value based generation. So values, a generation has to be given, a future generation has to be given a solid base for further evolving and further moving upward of the civilization. Thank you. very much.